Very nice to have this Spanish panel and their insights on the market and transact PropTechs and innovative solutions in market and transact. So now we will go to the Slovakia panel. They will talk in innovative approaches in manage and operate solutions, particularly for the residential asset class.
We would like to present you the Slovakia panel. Milan Bogar is the founder and PropTech Slovakia. The goals of PropTech Slovakia in Slovakia and abroad are promoting innovations, expanding a healthy competitive PropTech market, and protecting intellectual property rights at home and abroad. Support for PropTech startups and scale-ups and investors at home and abroad. Development of cooperation between PropTech providers and constructions and real estate companies with public, state and local authorities and institutions. Training and development of cooperation with the academic sector and associations. Development of a PropTech community in Slovakia and abroad.
Besides Milan Bogar, we will also hear Miro Hachlinec, who is the CEO and co-founder of BeiT, Czech Republic. Michal Magnusek is the third participant in this panel. He's a product manager, director, CEO, chief strategy of dev house Vector011.com and co-founder of our Livespace.com, a communication platform for residential projects. They will talk on innovative management and operation of residential buildings, maximizing benefits of inhabitants, operators, owners, as well as sustainability. Enjoy the talk.
I will ask them to fill anything they deem important in their introductions. Miro Hachlinec is CEO of the Czech startup providing very much integrated platform for residential buildings. It serves very well for facility managers, property managers, as well as for tenants. They developed this platform from the scratch, and they are developing also some hardware that is supporting monitoring of consumptions in buildings and support the communication with tenants, inhabitants in especially larger block of flats. And here Michal Magnusek, he's leading and I think you are the founder,
yeah,
and CEO as well of the platform Livespace, which provides solution for smoother communication with again between building administrators and tenants. Yeah, and
exactly.
they enable quite interesting things via this communication channel, and they can we can speak with them about new ways how to improve this administration and user experience with residential buildings.
Exactly.
So Miro, if you are or Michal, if you want to add anything, you can add regarding your introduction, and then we can move to the discussion.
So first of all, hello Milan, hello Michal, hello everybody, good afternoon. So thank you for inviting us here. We're happy to talk about more details about on the real estate industry. I think you summarized very well what we do, what we bring to the table of digitization of the real estate, because we see a huge potential in this area.
Yeah, thank you also from my side for the invitation, and hello everybody. Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, what we do is basically, as Milan, you said, that we are providing the communication platform with the integration solutions for other third-party services who would like to provide the data or maybe gather the data from the people in the residential building. So that's basically what we do.
Maybe the country of operation, or where are you from, and how old are you? Are your startups?
Maybe Miro can start.
Okay, yeah, because I'm the older one. But the company is more than 5 years old. We are operating in Czech Republic and currently having new customers also in Germany and doing pilots in France and Spain at the moment and are preparing for an expansion to the rest of Europe. At the moment, I'm currently sitting in Budapest for a week's program from the Visegrad 4 countries, or for the Visegrad 4 countries, where we won a competition, a national competition in Czech Republic, and are part of this program now, which is aimed at the expansion also to these Visegrad 4 countries. So that's basically our scope, and important to say, something I would like to mention is that we are developing this solution with large partners who are industry leaders in the facility property management and also utilities and energies. So we didn't bring this solution on our own to the market. We have extended our ranges with these partners who have really seen and had the need for digitization and automation in their industries and didn't see a comprehensive solution on the market. So they partnered with us in order for us to develop such a solution, and we are happy to announce that we have done it, and we have launched it at the end of the last year and are now really expanding to the markets that I mentioned.
Thank you very much. Sounds perfect. Michal?
Okay, so we are the younger company. We established the company in 2019, and we started to develop our product much sooner. It was for our own purposes, but we started to scale it with the biggest property management companies in Slovakia. So the whole journey started in a local market where we decided to build the product with the bigger names and property management companies in Slovakia. And we started to scale our product to distribute it globally. We are in discussion, especially with the countries and the companies from the West Europe. And currently, we have also discussions with a couple of property management companies in the US. So that's the current state.
Wow, we will for sure come to that later. If you don't mind, I would like to speak about this actual topic. I will jump right to the legislation in European Union and how your solutions can support it, can solve it. We know that from January 2021, there started a transition period in which all buildings, all residential buildings in Europe need to install remote monitoring and gadget equipments that are able to monitor how consumptions in residential buildings are evolving and inform on them the users. Yeah. And I'm really interested in how your solutions can facilitate this transition period. I think that until 2027, all residential buildings in Europe need to have this smart monitoring, if I'm not wrong. And I'm really curious because this is quite important step in digitization and in the quite low-tech residential industry in Europe, and how your solutions can facilitate this.
Okay, if I may, because this is our bread and butter, to be honest, this is something which corresponds exactly to what the demand was telling us on the market, and which was meanwhile translated also into European legislations. Just a side note, we had no idea that this European legislation will be put in place when we were developing exactly this kind of tools and systems for online monitoring of utilities and the spend for residential buildings, multifamily buildings, and especially delivering this information in real time to the tenants. So what the legislation and which legislation we are talking about, it's the European Energy Directive or an Energy Efficiency Directive, which was put in place by the European Union and which is binding for all European or European Union members. And the dates are, I would say, quite vary according to the countries, because not all countries adopted this legislation from the same date. So you mentioned 2021, in Czech, it's probably in Slovakia. In Czech Republic, this is starting 1st January 2022. The date 2027 is really set by the European legislation, and there are two important steps which this legislation prescribes. The first step is digitize the infrastructure, digitize smart metering. This concerns hot water and heating. So every meter for hot water and heating since this year in Czech Republic and similar to other countries, whenever you install a sub-meter for hot water and heating, you need to install a meter that is remotely readable and that can transfer the data remotely. So that's the first step and first prescription, let's say. And the second point is, which will be adopted in Czech Republic from next year. In other countries, it's already adopted. And this prescriptions tells us that everybody needs to deliver the information of monthly consumption on hot water and heating, where we have already the remote metering, to the tenants. So this is something completely new, because until now, normally the tenants received the settlements, so-called settlements or billing or however we called it, so the information on how much energies and utilities they consume at the end of the year, with a delay of several months. So normally, depending on the country, you get the bill in May for last year. But this legislation says you need to deliver to the tenant this information after the end of the month, which is a huge challenge for the whole market. Let's be honest here. We are really close to the market, and all the market is saying that this is extremely challenging for the facility managers, property managers, and settlement companies, because they are absolutely not prepared for this. Even this legislation is known for several years, they still claim unpreparedness for this kind of, let's say, game changer in their daily business. So that's why we have again developed something in advance, and we automate this whole process. So we not only can digitize and implement remote meters for hot water and heating, but all of them for electricity, gas, cooling, and so on, and integrate this automated data based on IoT devices, so Internet of Things devices, autonomously sending the data to a cloud. The cloud evaluates the data, calculates the data, distributes the cost between the tenants and the building itself, because we also digitize not only the sub-metering but also the main metering in the buildings, and we connect all these various information into one platform and can set an artificial intelligence system which calculates all these steps which are currently being processed manually or semi-manually and are being transferred between different companies. In Excel sheet, for example, we can deliver this up to a mobile platform which is used by the tenant, and where he sees all the consumptions of utilities and energies as prescribed by the European legislation, but much more, because we translate these values into money. So instead of seeing them there like kilowatt hours or cubic meters, we translate all this information into exact numbers. I'm trying to focus this. Yeah, maybe now.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. So the tenant gets real-time information transparently, but in exact values which he can understand. So this is the next level of digitization, which corresponds to the requirements which the European and national legislation are setting, and which they will be setting in the future, because there is already a next level of European Energy Efficiency Directive being now adopted, which will prescribe even more smart metering in buildings. So this is something where we obviously know this is happening, and this is going to happen in the future, because the end result is informed users, because only when we have informed users, then they can really save on their utilities and energies, By the way, it's like 30% of savings, which they can potentially achieve with this kind of digital tools. And this translates then further into the environment. So when you save on energy, you save on the environment. So these are important topics which are all interconnected with this legislation and with future legislations. And I don't want to even enter into the current energy crisis topic, because maybe we will talk about it later. All this is bundled together.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. I just want to ask how is it difficult to persuade specific building to deploy this kind of solution that will enable them to see all consumptions transparently each month, not once per year, and with significant delay. And what do we need? Is there any kind of decision making, which is especially in our countries quite a complicated issue, or is it something that is smooth and does not require anything difficult?
I would reply. Sorry if I, if I stepped in. I would reply with let's say an observation which we have meanwhile by again talking to a large amount of the market. By the way, we have customers managing 40,000 of apartments or households.
Yeah.
And I are aiming to extend this to 100,000 at the end of the year. But back to your question, so how difficult is it? It depends on the level of added value you bring them. So when you tell them, guys, you have there is a legislation in place which forces you to replace the smart meters, then the feedback is quite negative, because they say, okay, we replace smart meters, we invest something, but what's the added value it brings us? Well, if the reply is you can yourself collect data and monitor the consumption of selected utilities, then of course the customer is lost, because he's not an expert in data collection, he's not an expert in data visualization, and not an expert in connecting all the data and all the steps necessary to bring some value out of it. And even the this is like the very basic. There are semi-advanced solutions, typically utility providers or settlement providers can give you a portal where you see these two selected sub-meters and can show you cubic meters in time values and kilowatt hours, for example, gigajoules. But again, this is not the value where the end user would be keen or which would be understandable for him. This is a semi-product, such as when you go to let's say, I try to find an example, when you go to a shop with your car to repair something, and they tell you what the issue is and how you can repair it. Yeah, there's no way a regular user would repair it himself. So unless you bring him the full value, so the full picture and automation on top of it, which he doesn't even need to look at. You know, the application I showed you is not something we expect the end users to use frequently. It's there for them to know when there's something they want to look at. So they have it instantly at hand whenever they want to see their energy or utility bill. But whenever their costs exceed to a certain level, we want the system to notify the user, not the user to become a slave of the system. So this is the kind of value when we get to this level, to the ultimate level of digitization, and we present this to the end user, then it's a completely different discussion, because we not only show them the added value, but we also compare it with the cost. So, for example, when you collect this data semi-manually or manually, the cost of data collection are 5 to 10 times higher than if you have an automated system, because automated system is not based on manpower or cost of labor, and is cheaper at the end. So if you combine all these elements and ultimately tell them that you can save up to 30% on your utilities, which is a large sum and now is expanding even further, with a cost of, let's say, 1/10 of this energy savings invested into this kind of solution, then the response is, okay, yeah, this sounds fair, this sounds good, and I see a lot of added value out of it. So let's implement this kind of solution, because I see the added value, I see the package, but I also see the benefit in the financial terms, and not even talking about the benefits on the environment and so on.
Thank you. You mentioned communication with the customer. Yeah, your customers are usually the building administrators or the condominiums, the communities that are living in the house.
For us, it's only the managers, the facility managers, the professionals managing multifamily buildings in thousands or tens of thousands of end users or households. So we do not communicate, or we do not engage with the association building, individual buildings, nor with the tenants themselves. So there are different stages, and maybe I will also explain the difference between us and Livespace at the moment. So we act on the professional level of the management of buildings in or helping large companies to manage a large portfolio of buildings, and we only focus on the professional side of the management and operation of the buildings, which is the maintenance of the building. So focusing on the data related to the building itself, focusing on the monetary or economical tools. So again, the settlements, accounting, and parts, everything which is related to finances, and then the administration, so the interaction and communication, but between the professional and the building. And then there is the building themselves, who have the need to interact inside the buildings and with the, let's say, the neighborhood of the building. So which is something we call the community platforms, such as Livespace is one of them, and is bringing a lot of value in this community area and for the community. And if connected to the professional platforms such as we are, can even upgrade the value and which they bring and which we bring to the tenant, to the community, and to the building managers themselves.
Thank you. And now question to Michal. Michal, your solution helps tenants and inhabitants of residential buildings, especially the larger ones, to better communicate between each other and between them and the building administrators. What is the benefits that you can offer them with this?
Yeah, the thing which was also mentioned in the discussion with Miro is that there is a huge amount of things which will be digitalized because of regulation, because of also, let's say, by law, that there will be some definition of how things should be gathered and collecting the data. And we see that there is a lot of companies providing different kind of services and digitalization of many aspects of residential living, and not only the residential, but living itself. So we see that there should be some technology which will allow to end users to get and read this data, and also to have the representation of this data somewhere where they can come and to see the data which were collected from many different providers. So according to our history and also experience in the communication or providing the communication services for the people who live not only in the residential sector, we see that the place of our solution is to be something like aggregation or hub of the data, which can be aggregated to one place, where people can come and they will see the representation of the data which are connected directly to their property. So it means that the residential living, and especially in the flat houses, is something what contains two parts. It's especially the consumption of the energy, which is dedicated to the property which is owned by the residential owners. And the second part is energy consumption, which is divided between people who live in the flat houses in the common spaces like halls, elevators, and all this kind of stuff. And there is a different kind of smart metering and the data collectors who provide data not only on the property itself, but also in the particular places or the flats of each user or each owner. So it means that what we would like to make and provide to the end users is the transparency of the collected data. So they have the one place where they can find all metering, which is connected directly to their property, to their own flat, and also the data collected on the common part of the building. It can be part of the building or the whole building itself. And also what we provide is the traffic of the users. So the users know that they have one place to go if they would like to know some more information about the property. They know that because what I see, what is currently changing in the last couple of years is that people change their mind in how they approach their properties, because the investment to the property is something what is huge, or it's the significant part of their costs for the living and in their life. So they spend hundreds of euros to invest into their flats, into their property, and they would like to sustain the whole investment to their flat. So it's not only just the cost of the living, but it's partially also an investment. And they would like to keep the information and also the management of the building on a higher level, because they want to keep their investment on the track, and also that the building will have the quality and providing the quality of living not only for a couple of years, but maybe for the decades. So we see that the place of our product on the market is connecting the people and their interest about their property, and also connecting other providers who collect information about smart metering, IoT devices, consumption, efficiency of energy consumption, and all this kind of stuff directly to our application, to provide this data on the presentation layer for the end users and people who live in the flat houses. And not only for them, but also for services who provide the solutions and services directly in the flat houses, starting with the property manager, who is the main person and responsible subject of solving problems in the building, but also another third-party services like a cleaning service, garden keeping, and all this kind of stuff around the flat house.
Thank you. So can your solution someone help also with acquiring of these digital services like is offering Miro? Can for instance, the property manager get information via your application about the need to get more transparent data, to know more about how his property is operating, and where his consumptions are skyrocketing, and where the other way around, and help them to decide. Let's approach guys who provide these solutions and implement them.
Yeah, for sure. We previously discussed with Miro about this market because, as it was mentioned also on this discussion, is that the property managers and managers of the buildings, this type of business, it's, let's say, old school. And the requirements of the people who live in the flat houses and they invest a significant amount of their money into their property is that we see that the disruptive moment is happening exactly in that point where people understand that their investment into the flat house or into the flats is something what they would like to have constantly kept and, let's say, managed by somebody who will really care about their property. So the disruptive moment of this business, I think, will happen, and it's happening, especially in new buildings, in new developers projects, where where people understand the value of the property. And we see that they more care about the property itself, the communication and what is happening, and they are requesting the transparency of what is happening in the flat house. And the smart metering and the energy consumption is part of this. So they really need to be aware about what is happening in the flat house and what will be the cost that they should pay, not only at the end of the year, once then the calculation is ready, but they would like to keep track on the consumptions, let's say almost on a real-time basis, because the consumption of energy is something what is really popular also in our usual lives, because we would like to keep everything eco-friendly and minimize the consumption, because we know that investment into things or let's say electricity consumption goods is something what is not only for a couple of months but years, and we would like to know what is the real consumption, how we can save the money, how we can invest money better. And this is also the trigger which I see as a moment where people would like to have more transparency over the energy consumptions in the flat houses.
I would also like to add, if I may, because Michal tackled it perfectly, that this is ultimately this is a higher quality of management of your assets. So if I would use, I think a good comparison is one of your assets is the liquid assets, the money you have on your bank account. Yeah. And we all remember, or at least a few of us remember, how this was managed 10, 20 years ago, where you didn't have an online access to your bank account. You were waiting until you get the paper in the mailbox to know what's the remainder on your bank account. You were going to the bank to pay something and so on. And this is something which only a very few people do at the moment, because since the digitization of the banking sector, it has completely changed, and it's the level of quality of managing your assets correspond exactly with the level of digitization of the process. So that's why, for example, your bank can analyze your wealth, for example, and can suggest you better options for let's say allocating these funds. It wouldn't be possible without digitization. So so look at it in the real estate perspective, where the assets are of much higher value. You know, most of the people have more of their wealth invested into real estate than they have on their bank accounts. And today it's really in the analog way. It's in the way where this was also in the banking sector, but it was decades ago. And we are not bringing a revolution, because it's an evolution. The people are already used to this by managing other part of their assets. They just need to apply this, or somebody needs to apply this also to the larger part of their assets, which is the real estate. And understand that the industry is not there yet. It's very low tech. That's why we bring this disruption, and that's why we are not hoping or for this to happen. We are pretty confident that this is something which will happen, whether we are there or we are not there. It's simply the evolution which everybody is used to. We are just not used to it in this sector, which is really far behind the other sectors, and we are just speeding him up in order to get to the same level, or at least close to the level we are used to it everywhere else, with the specificity being that we are not talking about a niche sector. We are not talking about, let's say, 1 promille of the money that a person owns. We are talking about, in transaction wise, we are talking 25% of all your expenses. So 25% of all your everybody's expenses are dedicated to housing, to the housing, like energies, rents, and so on. So this is a huge bulk of money. And when translated to the GDP, so the money in the economy, it's 40% of all the money in the economy. And today it's managed untransparently very late, undigitized. So we are talking about a huge sector which is very low tech and which essentially will need and needs already the digitization and transparency and a much better management of the data, because only if you have better management of data, then you can better manage the values, the assets, the money, or whatever we call it. And there is the, as Michal mentioned, then there is the user, the end user, who is used to buy online grocery, everything online, who is used to mobile navigations, who is used to online banking or Google Pay, Apple Pay. So he's kind of surprised when he enters the first time into a new real estate. He's surprised with the state of the management of his money, his assets, and the state of the undigitization, I would say, in this industry. So we are bringing him something which he already expects. It's just not there.
Yeah, I'm glad that you both mentioned it. Michal mentioned also the fact that in new buildings, especially in new buildings, this process is pretty natural, and it starts to be normal that people are asking for these solutions. But in climate legislation, we are targeting to be carbon neutral in 2050, and it's known fact that 80% of the buildings that will be here in 2050 are already built. Yeah, so we have to do a lot with the buildings that are already in operation. And that's maybe my last question. What are the added values for these buildings that you can offer them relatively quickly, and which is let's say low-hanging fruit? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If I may, because this is, I think, very close to what we are doing, I just complete a few facts. So you're right that most of the buildings are in place, are built for a long time. They are supposed to last more than 200 years. So we need to do also something with the old buildings. So that's why we focus on we brought a solution which is usable on any building of any age, of any type, any structure. Of course, we are now focusing on residential part, but the one important number is that 38% of all carbon emissions, the pollution which is being produced worldwide, is coming from buildings. That's the buildings are the largest source of pollution on the planet at the moment. This is coming from a UN study quite recently, and cutting it into more details. Part of it is the construction of the buildings, part of it is the commercial buildings. But when we only look at the operation of residential real estate, we're talking of 17% of the global emissions. By the way, the air transport produces, all airlines together produce 2.5% of all emissions. Residential building, 17%. So the low-hanging fruit is, of course, we can do a lot of with insulation, with changing energy sources, with being more efficient, but this is not so easy on the old buildings. Most of the old buildings are already insulated, by the way.
Yeah.
Where it was possible. So what's the low-hanging fruit is it's exactly in the consumption. So it's in the area where we know there is overspend, we know that there is a potential for savings, and we also know that it requires very low investment. So instead of investing large sums into solar panels or electromobility, which is great, of course, I'm not saying it shouldn't be done, but here is another option which doesn't require large investments and has a huge potential on savings, because, as I already mentioned, 30% of potential savings on utilities in residential buildings can transform, if I multiply this by the 17% of carbon emissions which are produced in residential buildings, we are talking of a potential reduction of carbon emission in the amount of 5%. That's double as much as the air transport industry is producing, as I mentioned. So this is the low-hanging fruit, and this is simply by digitization and automation of the energy and utility consumptions, and putting in place regulatory regulation on top of this consumption, and some analytics and AI as we do to inform properly the use of their overspend in order for them to allow the reduction or to enable a reduction in this overspend. So this is for me the clear area of a huge potential for the environment in the residential sector, which is not yet being which has not yet been materialized fully.
Thank you very much, Michal.
Yeah, my question, the answer for your question is that the low-hanging fruit from this point of view for us is in these older residential projects is to make the property management much more efficient, because we see that the payments for the property management are really low, especially in the Central Europe, and the way how these, let's say, old school companies work with in the property management brings a lot of time consumption on solving problems and managing the people who are involved in the property management. So I think the digitalization in this process can help and bring people the optimal workflow, how they can work and solve problems for people in the residential buildings. So if the transparency of all collected data will be correctly represented in solutions like we provide, and we also bring the tools for the property managers to make property management much more efficient, this is the ways how we can save the time for people who are involved in this process, and to let's say decrease the communication channels between people and the property managers, and involve other parties in the property management to make it much more efficient, faster, and much more transparent for everybody who is involved in these processes.
Thank you very much. I think that was very interesting, very motivating.
I'm sorry, I have to jump off to another meeting.
Yeah,
so
thank you, Miro.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice day.
Thank you.
So this was Michal, Miro, and me from PropTech Slovakia for third edition of the PropTech Conference for Southeast Europe. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.